Hello, this is your psychology mentor, Park Seni. I've received a lot of comments asking me to recommend some books, even from way back. I've seen requests asking me to recommend good books and even review them, but there are reasons why I haven't done it until now. The first reason is that there are so many types of content I want to share with you directly, and even now there's still a lot. So as I focused on those first, I naturally didn't have time to make book recommendation or review videos. Also, I'm actually one of those people who are very cautious about recommending books because everyone's circumstances and conditions are different. Yet saying that someone must read a particular book, in a way, that kind of statement could be a bit irresponsible. That's why I felt uncomfortable telling people that they absolutely have to read a certain book. So when I do book reviews for you, I only recommend books that are truly important books that I genuinely wish everyone would read. Previously, on other channels or when meeting other YouTubers, there were 3 books I recommended to you, right? If you look at those 3 books, one of them is Meet Admiral Yi Sunday Sin in the Era of Economic Warfare. The one written by Professor Yong-Hee Ji. And what else did I recommend? Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And another one is The Law of Success by Napoleon Hill. Those 3 books, at the very least, are ones I hope everyone reads, no matter what field they work in. Today, there's a book I want to confidently recommend to all of you. I'm really confident about this one. I had all the students in my lifelong discipleship program at the center read it, and we had a great time discussing and presenting on it. But first, let me introduce the book and you see it well. It's called For 7 Years, I Met the World's Best. It's written by a man named Alex Banayan, and first of all, I hope every young person reads this book. That includes anyone who considers themselves young. Regardless of age, if you think you're young, and especially if you're someone who wants to turn your current situation around and live an amazing life, this is a book you absolutely must read. When I recommend books, I try to distinguish between books you absolutely must buy and own, and books you can just read at the library. That's because I've read a lot of books at the library myself. When my father's debt exceeded 200 million won, back in my 20s, I gave all my money to my dad, but until I started earning well, I read everything at the library. So you don't necessarily have to spend money to buy books if you go to the library. You can read as much as you want. But in my opinion, I think it would be better for you to buy this book if possible. Because when you read a book, there are so many important parts where I fold the pages or underline things. This book is probably one with a lot of those kinds of parts. So even all my lifelong disciples in my mentorship program are like, oh my. They were thankful that I introduced this book to them, so I can confidently recommend it to you all. You must read it at least once. Apparently, this book sold quite well in the United States. Although it didn't sell that well domestically, it seems to have already become a bestseller in the US, more than I expected. The original title is The Third Door, so it literally means the third door. What this means is, well, the author uses the analogy of getting into a nightclub. So when people try to get into a nightclub, about 99% of them just line up. Some people stand in line, thinking, maybe I'll get in after that person someday. While about 0.9% of people use the VIP entrance, they have connections. Those with connections just walk right in, and then there's the 0.1% who get in through the third door, the so-called third door. The third door refers to those who, instead of taking the usual path that everyone else takes, find another way in, like climbing through a window where there's no guard at the building. It's not about being a thief, but about entering through that third door for their own purpose. What I felt while reading this book was that the actions I took when I was young were very similar. And also, all the successful people we know, like Bill Gates and Steven Spielberg, these really prominent figures, this person actually met many of them. And doing that at a young age is not easy in itself. At times like that, you can send an email saying you want to meet them, or you can just keep waiting in line. And if you're a VIP, if your father or someone like that is an influential figure, you can meet them because of your status. But this person didn't have any of those advantages. And at a young age, he entered through the third door. But the thing is, this isn't something only this person did. When I was creating something that didn't exist in Korea, like the psychology class, a course that wasn't available in Korea, when I barged into the director's office, I went in with a certain philosophy of life and view of humanity, making sure my mindset was right. But honestly, even then, it wasn't that. I was afraid of the security guards. It was more like when the guards were distracted for a moment, I'd quickly slip in I remember doing things like that. Honestly, I did that quite often. So by doing that, I had the chance to meet directly with the directors and other busy people. And in those situations, I systematically and logically persuaded them with my knowledge, communicated my ideas well, and was able to gain new opportunities. Those memories keep coming back to me vividly. If you look at this book, it really says that if you truly desire something, if you sincerely wish for something, instead of just following the path everyone else takes, if you are truly desperate, you should take the third door, the so-called third door, and do things that others can't or won't do. Becoming someone who can achieve and seize what you want in that way is much cooler and better. In fact, unless you take that third door, it's almost impossible. Unless you think about going through the third door and actually show that kind of action, if you just wait for your turn and hope that an opportunity will come to you in order, most people will never get that chance. There are so many examples of this. The incidents that Alex Banayan actually went through to meet those incredible people, these are things I could explain one by one, but I won't go into detail because it might be a spoiler. I want you to read it yourself, feel your heart race, and experience it firsthand. For example, even someone like Steven Spielberg, one of the greatest filmmakers of his time, actually failed the film director entrance exam when he was young. But even though he failed, he didn't give up on his dream of making it in Hollywood. While on a Hollywood tour bus, when the bus stopped for a restroom break, he snuck into the bathroom and simply didn't come out. He stayed there until the bus left. And as a teenager, he then wandered around the area, just hanging around. He wandered around various studios here and there. While doing so, he naturally built relationships with some famous directors, made a good impression, and even managed to get a pass, like a 317 pass. Even after the 317 pass expired, he casually extended its validity, almost like forging it, and would confidently greet the security guard with a hello and a smile, passing by as if he were an employee. The security guard, smiling back, would let him through, thinking he was staff. This is the kind of thing that even that great master did in his younger days. Based on these actions, he gradually gained better opportunities and acquired more practical hands-on knowledge. So he caught the eye of that director, made a short film, and he moved the director to tears. This led to continued connections with those great masters, and eventually he became the youngest director to sign a contract with Universal Studios. When we look at stories like this, we shouldn't just see the people we remember as great as inherently great people, but rather as people who did great things. They are people who at a relatively young age showed remarkable actions, things that others couldn't easily do. It is from those beginnings that they reached the level, the status, and the position where we now recognize them as truly extraordinary individuals. So if you also want to be recognized as a remarkable person, you need to actively make use of this concept of the third door. As I mentioned, I also made use of this a lot when I was younger. That's why these days you can meet great and remarkable people even through the regular VIP entrance, not just the third door. But if I hadn't made use of the third door when I was younger, I probably wouldn't have been able to build relationships with the people I now know, those whom others widely recognize as extraordinary. So the third door, always keep that in mind and ask yourself, am I looking for it? If you haven't really tried to find that third door, you should consider that you haven't truly given it your all. But most people don't even consider the existence of a third door. They simply follow the obvious path that everyone else takes. And if that doesn't work, they just give up. And if you don't have any connections, right, the second door. If there's no door you can go through using connections, people think they can't make it. But there's a third door. For me, this book made my heart race for the first time in a while. And in this book, there is someone I paid even more attention to than the author, Alex Banayan. It's a person named Elliot. Elliot is like a mentor to Alex Banayan. He's also a young entrepreneur. And at first he was just an ordinary, so-called average person. But by making use of the third door, you can really see how he grows into someone significant. To give you just one example, when Elliot first started something like an advertising agency, he dropped out of college as a student and began by calling companies saying he was reaching out about advertising. Who should I speak to about this? We're not interested. And then they hang up, of course. Next time he calls again, hello, who's in charge of advertising? That would be the marketing director. Is it possible to speak with them for a moment? Sorry, but we're not interested. Click. Then Elliot calls another company. So here, hello, who is the marketing director? That would be Mr. Smith. Could I speak with him for a moment? No, you can't. Click. It feels like he keeps getting rejected, right? But he takes notes on all of this. And then a few days or about a week later, he calls the same company again, using the most professional voice possible. Hello, may I speak with Director Smith, please? Yes, just a moment. Soon the call gets connected, and in this way, he meets people one by one. If he hadn't actually tried this in real life, he wouldn't have been able to make progress step by step. But if you go through trial and error quickly from a young age, you start to find the right methods from within those experiences. And as mentioned on page 151, for example, an older entrepreneur who becomes your client naturally helps fill in your shortcomings, offers guidance, and even becomes your customer without asking for any money. So when you jump in and take action directly from a young age, there are many adults who find that very admirable just by seeing your efforts. That's why they might help you out like this, right? Even though they're your customer, they end up giving you helpful advice, thinking, is this really how young people should do things? Maybe not. They might even tell you, this is actually the better way to do it. So you can gain that kind of good fortune as well. That's why jumping in and taking action from a young age is so meaningful. And, well, let me just talk up to page 161 or so. This part is really the highlight. Look at this. You go to a good university, do an internship, graduate, get a job, get promoted, save up money for vacations every year, work until your next promotion, and live your whole life like that. You slowly follow predictable steps. That's how most people live. For the most part, it's all predictable. But as Elliot says, successful people don't live like that. They live exponentially, don't go step by step, they leap ahead. People say you need to prepare properly and accumulate years of experience, and only then can you want something real. Our society teaches the lie that you need X, Y, and Z to achieve your dreams. It's all nonsense. The only person you need permission from to live an exponential life is yourself. This is truly, truly an amazing statement. I like to put it this way: live a life of multiplication or live an exponential life. Not just addition, but multiplication, living a life where you can achieve growth by several times over. I made up my mind to live that way, and that's why I've been doing things that others don't think of or dare to do since I was young. As a result, I became a psychological consultant who can earn tens of millions of one a month, and now I'm living a very happy life. That's why, as I mentioned in a video a few days ago, I once shared my Kakao Talk status message, because I think I can do it because others don't, and even if others don't, I will. And because I put those thoughts into action, I think that's why I'm able to live happily in the way I want. So everyone, the truth is, when it comes to living an exponential life, the person you really need permission from isn't others, it's yourself. If you truly want that, if you want to live an exponential, amazing life, it's not about getting permission from others. You need to quickly meet experts in the field, jump in, and go after that third door, that alternative path. That's what you need to target. And as you receive direct feedback and gain more experience through action, you'll be able to exert even greater power. So who do you need permission from for that? It's yourself. So when others see that you are prepared and living passionately, they will recognize you as a passionate person. If you have the power, they will help you, and they will inevitably become your customers and respond to you in that way. You need to understand that this is the kind of person you are. Besides what I'm talking about now, this book contains a great deal of wisdom. I think it would be better for you to read it yourself. Let me share just one more thing. Larry King, the famous American talk show host, Larry King says, people like people. This saying is also very resonant, and the great line is really cool. People like people. Of course, people don't like everyone. They are drawn to those who have a story, not just any predictable story, but one that can truly captivate and immerse others. So you need to create that kind of story for yourself. It's not just about doing something obvious, but about doing things that others can't do well or rarely do, taking those actions, and then sharing that story with others, spreading it around. So when it comes to people liking other people, it's not just about writing on a piece of paper like in a job application who you are, what abilities you have, and then hoping that just by submitting that paper, you'll get through the first door. Personally, I always felt that approach didn't suit me at all, because the ideals, dreams, and sense of mission I have are just too big, and it's obvious that a piece of paper can't possibly contain who I am. So to write my history on that piece of paper and just sit there waiting for it to be accepted, that was something I could never bring myself to do. So I decided that I would meet the final decision maker in person and keep telling them sincerely about how I have lived and how I'm prepared until they truly understand. I believe this is the proper way to do things, and that it is the right action not only for myself but also for the dreams and ideals I hold. So everyone, although I read this book in my 40s, I have been living happily since my 20s by thinking and acting in this way. Once again, I urge all young people watching this, and even those who consider themselves young at heart in our country, to make sure you read this. Don't put it off any longer. Take bold action and go through that third door. After that, those actions, whether it's through YouTube or maybe a blog, though YouTube is probably the best. In that way, you can spread your story widely. And if you have such a story, you become more confident, and reaching out to others will become easier and easier. It's only difficult at first. As you keep doing it, it will become natural and effortless. So today I gave you a brief review and recommendation without any spoilers. Please make sure to watch it and then share your thoughts or reviews in the comments. If I can, I'll try to reply as well. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe, like, and turn on notifications. From time to time, when there are really great books, I'll review them like this without giving away any spoilers. Alright then, always stay strong. Thank you.